Hello and welcome to the Grueling Truth. This is the Grueling Truth Indy 500 qualifying recap. I'm your co-host for this show, Joe Spilman, along with Steve Risley. But before we get into the 500 qualifying recap, I want to remind you that the Grueling Truth is powered by betting.net. Betting.net is your best bet for finding an online casino or sportsbook that's right for you. Steve, we're going to dive right into this thing. As you know, Scott Dixon won the pole at the Indy 500. But outside of that, I'm not going to get into much. I'm going to turn it over to you to explain to me what you saw this weekend.
Well, Joe, that's a mistake because we just turned a half-hour show. You turn it over to me into about a 4-hour soliloquy.
That's okay. I got time, Steve.
Yeah, but I don't think the people listening to us have time, if anybody's even bothering to listen to us
You know
anymore.
what, Steve? The people listening to us love you, and they want to hear what you have to say. I guarantee.
Yeah. My own wife of 38 years doesn't even love me anymore. You got to be kidding me. Qualifying. What a fun day it was for qualifying, wasn't it?
Oh, yeah.
You came out Saturday, and right out the bat, people are shooting around. You got a lot of hits and a lot of misses out there. Some cars that we thought were going to qualify well, or drivers that we thought were going to qualify well, all of a sudden didn't really come to the top of the speed charts. And there was some issues with winds. Saturday brought heavy winds. Really, you need to get out early and set your time, which a couple drivers did, and see if that stuck. The whole goal Saturday was really just to get in the fastest 12. That's all they really wanted to accomplish on Saturday, because the pole wasn't going to be determined on Saturday, just the fast 12, which would run Sunday afternoon. And then everybody else's time slots, 13 on down to 33, would be locked into position. So there was give and take. The track got worse throughout the day as the winds picked up and the track heats up. I mean, a 1 or 2 degree adjustment in that track surface changes the grip of those tires immensely and determines whether you can run flat out full open in a qualifying run, which is what everybody wants to do. Or you have to lift here and there, which steals your momentum tremendously bad anywhere on any corner you go into. So they had to pick early or wait till late, when things generally tend to die down and the track tends to start cooling off a little bit. But then as you get late in the day, there was a bunch of people that wanted to go qualify. Time becomes an essence because everybody loves hearing that gun go off on Saturday. So in the end, 12 guys got in and qualified for the race. And those 12 guys that qualified were, I'll just run them down to you. Let's see here. Scott Dixon, Alex Palou, Rhinus VK, Ed Carpenter, Marcus Ericsson, Tony Kanaan, Felix Rosenquist, Roman Grosjean, I don't know, East European French guy, Takuma Sato, 2-time champion, Will Power, and Jimmy Johnson.
And
probably
Award.
What?
Pato Award. He qualified in the 7th position. I think he skimmed over him.
Oh, yeah. I see. Pato. It's Pato, not Pato.
Pato.
But you say tomato, I say tomato. Yeah. It's Pato Award. Oh, that's how he pronounces it. So those 5 guys moved on to qualify for the final 12. Going on from there, I'm looking at the qualifying order, and I'll just go through 13 through 33 real quick. Dave Malakougas qualified 13th. Joseph Newgarden, a Penske car, came in at 14th. Surprisingly, I don't know, did any Penske car even make the fast 12? Yeah, Will Power. Will Power would be the only one, which is unusual because there has been times when Penske has owned the front row. But that didn't happen this week. Only one car of the Penske stable. Joseph Newgarden, 14th. Santonio Ferrucci, 15th. Simon Pagenaud, a former winner of the race, driving, I believe. Simon drives with last year's winner. What's his name? Castroneves, doesn't he? A teammate of Castroneves? Yes, he is, because I know he drives car number 60. J.R. Hillenbrand, 17th. Connor Daly, a very big Indy favorite, somebody who led the most laps at the track last year, came in at the 18th place, 2:30.999, almost 2:31 to get 18th place. Callum Elot, an Irish gentleman, qualified 19th. The 100th winner of the Indianapolis 500, 100th, the winner of the 100th Indianapolis 500, Alex Rossi, driving for Andretti Autosports in the Napa Honda, qualified 20th. Graham Rahal, another perennial favorite, 21st. Sage Karam, a veteran qualifier, doesn't make many races, 22nd. Marco Andretti, somebody who was higher in the speed charts all week, but at the time of day he tried to go qualify. Just didn't get the timing right, or something wrong with his car. Qualified 23rd. Devlin DeFrancisco, 24th. Colton Herta, a two-time winner at the track, including the last race held, which was at the Indianapolis Speedway, the road course, 25th. Scott McLaughlin, 26th. Defending champion and absolute fan favorite, four-time winner, Helio Castroneves, will make his historic run to win number 5.
Elio.
Helio qualified 27th. Kyle Kirkwood. I went to school with a kid named Mark Kirkwood. I wonder if that's his son. Might be. Dalton Kellett, who we'll talk about later on here in a minute, 29th. Juan Pablo Montoya did not hit anything.
The track dryers are safe, Steve.
The track dryers are safe. The security trucks are safe. The wreckers are safe. The pace car is safe. So everything was safe. When you go back out there, I want you to hit the pace car. The pace car, why? Because you hit every other damn thing on the track, and I want you to be perfect. Right out of Days of Thunder.
Days of Thunder.
Christian Lundgaard, 31st. Jack Harvey, 32nd. And with no speed posted at all, how about that? You don't even have to turn a lap, and you qualify 33rd, guaranteeing you probably $300,000 or $400,000 in your pocket for a day's worth of driving in a convertible and having a lot of fun on the track. Stephen Wilson qualified 33rd with no posted time. How about that? So any surprises to you there, Joe?
Not really. Not knowing IndyCar as well as you do, Steve. There are some definite drivers I know, like Juan Pablo Montoya, Helio Castroneves. Of course, I know Scott Dixon. Who doesn't? Marco Andretti. I really thought those older guys that have raced in this race, I don't know how many times, countless times, would have been up there in qualifying. And there's a lot of names on the the 33 car starting grid here that I don't know. And I don't know them for good reason. I'm a NASCAR guy. I'm not necessarily an IndyCar guy. I do try to keep up with it and watch it, but I don't follow it. Very attentively. One of the biggest surprises I think I do have is I think there was a lot of question about Jimmy Johnson coming into this weekend. And I think as a rookie to the Indy 500, Jimmy Johnson has performed amazingly well this weekend. I think he had the save of the century when it came to Indy car qualifying on Sunday. And have you seen that, Steve? Do you want to see it?
I have seen it, but if the fans would like to see it, if they want to see his save, which was, people don't realize what looks like just a little slide job, what he accomplished by not letting that car get loose, the tail end break around.
Check this out, Steve. I mean, this is an incredible save in any circuit or form of auto racing that you're driving. I mean, and granted, I think they said he was going about 228 miles an hour here. I mean, you couldn't fit a piece of paper in between the wall and the tail end of his car here.
No, and then to square the car back up and get it to keep going and not brush off a lot and then keep the car going straight.
Yeah, that's amazing. He didn't lose that car. It is unbelievable.
Yeah, the only one that might be better than that is I think it was golly, 1985, I think. It was that long ago. Do you remember? Oh God, now I'm gonna forget his name. Dadgum, it'll come back to me. I'll tell the story later. Not Danny Young, guys. Can't think of his name. He spun in front of Andretti. Danny
Yeah.
Sullivan. Danny Sullivan, who did a complete 360 spin on the North Shore chute or South chute, coming out of turn one, going around, and right in front of Andretti, he just did a complete spin. Andretti got around him, and Sullivan squared his car up and kept going, and the crowd went nuts. And then Sullivan goes on to catch him eventually, and ends up winning the Indy 500 that year for his only 500 win. That may have been the only more miraculous save I'd ever seen, but certainly with the lack of time seat time that Jimmy Johnson has on this track at speeds that he's absolutely not used to driving at, that was a monumental save, no doubt, and probably one of the best.
Now, Steve.
Yeah,
Steve,
go ahead.
Yeah, so not being familiar with it, I know the speeds at Indy have gotten up, in the high 230s. But this week during practice before qualifying, and practice for qualifying, we were seeing speeds up 241, 242 on the backstretch. Is that typical, or were those extremely high for this year?
Well, no, I don't think so, because you were seeing those before they boost the horsepower. They didn't boost the horsepower 90 horsepower until Friday, for Fast Friday. So you were seeing them when a car's out there running alone and has the right balance on the car and the right lineup on the backstretch, you can get going 240. Usually you get a tailwind with you on the backstretch and a prevailing wind on the front stretch. Usually, as weather flows in and out of Indiana, that's the general path that comes from the south to the north. So you get a good push. You got good balance on your car. You can hit 240. So that's not, to me, as shocking as at any one time. Doing that on just a certain part of the track. What becomes more shocking and things like that is what Scott Dixon did to win the pole, and that's turn a 4-lap average just for 4 laps, an average speed of over 234 miles an hour, making it, as I've read on several occasions, the fastest 4-lap average in the history of qualifying at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. That's what I think is shocking. That means he had to maintain that speed for an average pace. So he was hitting in the mid to high 240s in the backstretch, had to be, and carrying the mid to high 230s in turns 3 and 4, because 1 and 2, because you're going into a headwind all the way down 1 generally, and then you're getting that wind pushing your car down toward the infield on 1 and 2 turns. So you tend to scrub off speed, and you'll notice if they show the speeds through the corners, you'll see the speeds going through 1 and 2 to be slower as they are then they pick it up on the backstretch and run through 3 and 4 really high, because it's a helping wind to them in whatever arrow it is. It's coming out of the south, going up north, and it keeps your car up high into the grooves, which is what you need to find the fastest way around that car. The problem with getting up into the groove is marbles from the track in terms of tire degradation and tire wear. But if you got a good clean track and you're going out early enough, there's not a lot of marbling of the track yet. Bingo. You're going to put in a 4-lap average of 234 miles an hour, which is, like I said, fastest 4-lap average ever for Scott Dixon. So that's outstanding.
Now, the fastest 1-lap average at Indianapolis Motor Speedway still to this day is 237, right? Is that correct?
Yeah, who turned that? I'm not even sure.
I'm not sure. I read it the other day.
Yeah,
like I said,
that's the average. That's the speed for 1 lap.
Right.
237, but nobody could sustain that for 4 laps.
One thing I will say about watching Scott Dixon's qualifying, if I remember right, he actually got faster. So typically, what I noticed in the 4-lap qualifying and practice sessions, each subsequent lap after the first lap, first full lap, they would get tenths of a mile per hour slower. Scott Dixon.
You know why that happens? You know why that happens, Joe?
Why?
Two reasons. One is you get tire degradation when you're pushing that kind of speed around the corners. You're going to get some tire degradation, but mostly it occurs because the more laps you run on that, the hotter your car gets, the hotter your engine gets. As the engine gets hotter, horsepower drops.
Mm-hmm.
So they begin to lose horsepower on even as far as the second lap. So the fact that he could maintain horsepower in his car and keep his car at that pace where he actually did pick up speed on the second and third laps of his run, um, just he had that car dialed in right. He was getting perfect aero over his car. He had the balance on the car right because he was getting minimal tire degradation. But if you get your balance right between the front and the rear, you'll get good. You'll get the balance right, and you'll just be like floating on a cushion of air. They describe the drivers will describe it as, and with no horsepower drop off because the engine's not badly overheating. And he went out early, I believe, and set his time when the track was probably a little more cool than it did throughout the course of the rest of the day. Then you've got perfect storm for Scott Dixon. And, that time just sat and nobody could get to it. Pillow and VK got close to it toward the end of the day, but nobody could get close to that all the way around. So, but that's how the qualifying went. Of note, the only driver that what we call a one-timer, Tony Kanaan, who is a former winner, but what I call a one-timer, any of the guys that just show up and want to ride at Indy. Tony Kanaan's like that. Juan Pablo Montoya's like that. Ed Carpenter, who also ended up fourth in the overall qualifying scheme of things, inside right behind Scott Dixon. He's pretty much just an oval driver for those guys. But Tony. We talked about Tony Kanaan. There's Marco Andretti, again, another one-time driver. Guys that just come out just to run the inning. They don't run the full circuit. Your reflexes are off just a little bit. Your timing's off just a touch. You're not used to the speeds again. You got to get up looking at the speeds. So they ended up getting good timing, and then they get to the fast 12 on Sunday. The spots 13 through 33 then after Saturday's qualifying were locked in. And that begins with Dave Malakus. David Malakus. I believe he's Swedish, as the little blurb on him talked about, with his family coming all the way over to see him. So, or Norwegian descent, somewhere in that vicinity. But, and then they go to the end of the day, and that's when all the fast times got set. The cars really got dialed in. They went out and practiced a little bit. They had a practice period before on Sunday for the fast 12. Go out and dial the cars in. They did. Then they came back in, took a little bit of a break, and they started the fast 12. The benefit to Scott Dixon was, since he had set the fastest time the day before, he got to go last in the fast 12. They go to the fast 12, then they whittle it down to the fast 6. And then out of the fast 6, they pick a pole winner. And once again, because Dixon still was running fast, he got to go last, giving his engine the most time of anybody to cool off. So I'm just trying to give you a little thing how this all works out for him. A lot of this is luck and timing, as to when you go qualify, what the track temperatures are, how much your engines had the ability to cool down. If you ever watch an F1 race, you'll notice that as soon as they come into the garage or whatever, they have fans all over the engine and all over the brakes and the driver's cockpit for comfort. But they do the best they can to cool the F1 engines down and to cool off the brakes, get maximum efficiency or efficient use out of both the engine and the brakes. So Dixon happened to be in that favorable position of being able to go last, therefore giving his engine the most time to cool down. And I think he took the fewer practice laps out on the track, just brought his car in and just said, we're ready to go. Thus the results of qualifying there.
Now,
go ahead.
Well, now, Steve, I was going to ask, as far as qualifying and moving in to what is going on this week, as you know, Steve, and so the listeners know, this week I'm going to do a one-time only top 5 best bets for the Indianapolis 500, along with my top 5 best bets for the Coca-Cola 600 with NASCAR, and I'm pretty dialed in at what I'm looking at in the research that I do to pick my top 5 bets for the NASCAR race each week.
Well, let's just
And
play with that for a minute. What are you dialed in on? What's dying from a guy who's self-professed, doesn't
yeah,
follow IndyCar and know much
so
about IndyCar? What are you dialing in on?
well, so
Because
when
I'm
I
going to
do
blow all of them out of the water right now,
no,
except
well,
for one or two of them.
I don't know anything about. Well, I would assume that I'm
Don't
going to
tell people that they're going to
list.
take your advice to bed and then say you don't know anything about what
So
you're talking about.
I would
You sound
assume.
like Mike Goodpasture now.
So listen, I would assume, or what I will do is I will take the same strategy that I do with NASCAR each week that has worked out well, as you know, on the
So
NASCAR
you're
show.
saying you don't know anything about NASCAR either?
No, my picks for NASCAR, Steve, are incredibly good. But what I will
Oh,
say is, for a typical NASCAR race, what I do is I look at the season that the drivers are having this year. I look at what their pit crews doing. I look at the suspensions that pit crews have, which is a theme in NASCAR, not so much IndyCar. And then I also look at how they have historically run on the track that they're racing at, and like tracks that they're racing at. So if they're racing at a Texas Speedway, but they have 2 or 3 races at a Kentucky Speedway, that's a like track. I can kind of see what they do on those tracks, what they qualify, and what they normally finish. Now I could take that same approach with IndyCar, but also with IndyCar, this is Jimmy Johnson's second oval. But if you look back at his NASCAR career, he has finished fairly well at the Brickyard every time he's run there. He knows the track. He qualified well. It looks like he's getting a handle on that car. So, I would maybe not put Jimmy Johnson in my top 5 for the Indy 500 right now. I have to see what this week brings. But taking that same approach, there's a lot of unknowns for me going into this type of track with these drivers. A lot of these drivers, especially F1 drivers, are road course drivers. I don't know. I don't. I don't necessarily know what is the magic formula to nail this down, other than what we have seen in qualifying and practice. So that's what I'm asking you going into this week, and what we have today. Like, we had a crash today, but going into this week, walk me through what the drivers are going to do this week and what I can expect to see throughout the week and what I should be keeping an eye on.
well, what's simple is what the drivers are going to be doing all this week is glad handing with sponsors, corporate events, and media opportunities. Some of them, the front row, will probably head to New York and be on the Today Show and talk about it, because NBC is broadcasting the Indy 500 this year and from now on out. So after today, they practiced today, and we'll get into the practice today a little bit and what it was all about, because it was hectic. A lot of cars on the track. Every car was on the track for a long period of time. And we had an incident, the only first incident we've had with the wall at the track, but we'll get to that. But the drivers really are off the track now until a 2-hour, I believe it's a 2-hour session on Friday called Carburation Day. Now, the mythical thing about that is none of these cars have carburetors anymore. So really, it's just your last chance to get in and tune your car up. And back when they were running Offenhausers and the front engine roadsters, and before the advent of fuel injection, which started in Formula One and then migrated itself over to IndyCar and other forms of racing too. I believe NASCAR just picked up fuel injection this year too. I believe. Don't quote me on that, but I think they did. But really,
You know, who would know
Carb Day
that?
used to be where they would actually go. Pardon?
You know who would know that? Probably
Ryan Peters.
Ryan Peters, who's
And
watching
look, he
right
said,
now.
"What's up, fellas? Ryan,
fellas?"
what's up? Does NASCAR use fuel injection at this point in time? If you can answer that, Ryan, if you're listening. Anyway, back to it. So most of the drivers will be doing media opportunity and glad handing with sponsors for this week. Is what will happen there until Friday, and they'll come back out They'll pull their cars out. Everybody will be very cautious with their cars. They were not cautious today. I was amazed. A lot of pack running, a lot of everybody running to try and see where they could pass, where they couldn't pass. Brian says, yes, sir. So they do run fuel injection now
Thank you,
with the
Mr.
next
Peters.
gen cars. See, I'm smarter than I think I am. But I didn't admit I didn't know it, Joe. You can't admit you don't know what you're talking about, or people aren't going to follow your 5 picks. Okay? Little deal there we can have right there, a little agreement.
So, Steve, I didn't say
I think
that
our
I didn't
friends
know.
at betting.net would be disappointed.
Steve, that's not what I
I
said.
know. I'm just yanking your chain.
I said
Let me
to
debunk
say
some of what you said. Indy is its own beast. Indianapolis Motor Speedway is absolutely its own beast. There is no place like it in the world. There is no track that can compare to it. Nothing that you have learned, or not nothing. Little of what you have learned on other tracks really applies to Indianapolis. What applies to Indianapolis more than anything is seat time and experience in the car and hitting your marks. And if you don't have marks at Indianapolis, the speed you're going at, you're traveling over a football field a second. Joe, imagine if you had a wide receiver that could travel a football field in 1 second. Hey, you wouldn't have a quarterback that could keep up with him. And nonetheless, he'd probably win you a bunch of football games. So these cars are moving along at that pace. So seat time becomes critical. Let's take Jimmy Johnson. Jimmy Johnson has some things going for him. Jimmy Johnson, as well as anybody, knows how to turn left. Okay? And that's what IndyCar is all about. There's no right turns. You don't want to, if you're making a right turn in Indy, you're in a heap of trouble, boy. It's as simple as that. You got to be able to turn left. Jimmy knows how to turn left. Now, the speeds they travel at, the way these cars have downforce on them and the wide tires that they have, it's not as difficult as you would think to go take a car out at the 230 mark and run it by yourself if that's what the horsepower and the aero package you have on the car will give you. Now, there are drivers out there that can manufacture that. Helio Castroneves, starting at 27th, is somebody you have to put down as a favorite to win this race, because I think Helio started back a pack last year. I mean, this is a man that knows how to drive this track better than probably anybody out there and keep himself out of trouble, wind his way for 170 laps to the front through good pit stops, through smart driving, staying out of trouble. You can always get caught in a wreck. I mean, it happened to Chase Elliott in the All-Star race. He's just driving, minding his own business, and a car comes flying out of the sky from nowhere and takes him out. That happens, and there's nothing you can do about that. But I want to see what Jimmy Johnson's going to do diving into turn one with 32 other idiots going somewhere in the near of 230, 240 miles an hour into turn one. It gets pretty hairy at that point in time for the first couple of laps. And then it'll spread out. People will get in a single file line and run for a while. And then they'll start feeling their car out and seeing what the weather and the engineers have given them on that given day. But the guys with the experience will start to move to the front. Okay, you got a question you want to ask in the meantime? Go ahead.
I do.
I'm not done with my explanation.
Well,
what drivers have done in IndyCar so far this year has very little to do with what they're going to do on Sunday. It's a different beast.
My question is, and maybe you can incorporate this into what you're talking about. So this is another question I have when trying to maybe analyze a race. What can we expect? How far can these cars go? How many laps can these cars go before they need refueled at Indy? And also, what are we looking at for tire wear? So how many laps can we expect to get out of a car on the tires that they're running?
Generally, as a rule, is the fuel window is generally, I believe, in the, I'm going to say 25 lap range. That's about it. So they'll get 25. Generally, an Indy car will make 6 or 7 pit stops throughout the course of a race. Tires are always changed whenever, unless it's a splash and go, because you're going down to the last 10 laps and you don't want to take the time put on 4 new tires. You feel your tires are good, they're still giving you good grip. But tire wear is probably just slightly longer, depending on where you're driving, how hard you're pushing your car. If you're sailing, which the leader car usually does until he gets into some traffic, lap traffic, then you're sailing, you don't put a lot of stress on your car. You find that groove you want, you find the easiest way around that track, you stay in that groove as long as you possibly can, and you go. If you're back dinging it out with all the other drivers, you're trying to get position, go position, you're going to pass on the inside. Am I going to risk getting in some marbles out there? Is the other guy going to drift up on me and push me out farther or touch my wheel? Or I'm going to come down on the inside, which all of a sudden now you're putting more wear and tear because you're trying to grip that track down on the fastest way around the track, but also the most difficult to drive. So tire wear normally, if you're running a clean groove, will go longer than the fuel window will go. But it doesn't matter. When they come in during the course of the race, generally, if you see a driver put gas in the car, they're going to take time to put fuel in, because with the single lock hubs that they use in Indy, they figured it out, unlike the NASCAR boys, and F1 boys have figured it out too. They can change 4 tires faster than they can fuel that car.
Well, they also have 30,000 freaking people over the wall too, Steve.
Indy does not. Indy, I believe, has a limited number of 6 or 7 drivers over the wall. I don't think they have any more than NASCAR does. F1 does, yes.
Yeah.
And F1 doesn't fuel.
People.
F1 does not fuel. Once you start the race, that's all the fuel you get for the course of the race. So F1 will not allow fuel to be put in the car during the course of a race. If you run out of fuel, you run out of fuel. That's it. So really, Indy and the likeness between Indy and NASCAR, they refuel during the course of the race. They have to. F1 runs a short enough race that the whole fuel load is put on at the start of the race. So I'm looking at pit stops coming at lap 25 to lap 30, depending on how well your car is doing and what your strategy is. Some people may try and stretch it a bit to knock off a pit stop throughout the course of the race. Maybe if I can stretch each one 5 laps, I can get it down to 5 or 6 pit stops rather than 6 or 7. So that strategy comes into play, and you've got all kinds of engineers sitting up in that box with computers that are spitting this information out, tooth and nail, and relaying it to the driver. F1, they just make the changes from the pits. Those cars are electronically monitored and controlled by a computer, and they'll change tire pressure and things like that in a car while the car is running, and make the changes right there in an F1 car. But those are the most technologically advanced auto racing machines there are on 4 wheels right now. But back to Indy. So look for pit stops around 25, 26. Now, what becomes critical with that is especially toward the end of the race, is what they did on Sunday. The important part is, and they practiced it today, not only did they get position, they got pit stall selection. And anybody that follows racing knows exactly what I'm talking about. Pit stall selection becomes critical. Obviously, Scott Dixon chose stall number 1, so he comes all the way down pit road. But the chances, unless he's speeding going in, which is not likely, because he's probably following every other car going to his pit, he gets in, and then he just has to cross the line 10 feet in front of him, and he can just crank the pedal and go. You know, he does not have to wait at that point and have to drive 55 or whatever they set the pit stop limit at. Doesn't have to fight all the congestion going on behind him as people try and come in and go out. He's got nobody in front of him. Other drivers will look and see who's in front of him, who's behind him, to get a feel for when they're going to stop. Try and keep a stall in front of you and behind you, ideally, if you can. But a lot of times, you come in under a yellow or something like that, you don't have that luxury, because all lead lap cars are going to come in. So pit stall selection becomes critical. They did a lot of practice on that today. A lot of practice on coming to the pits and working on where they're getting sure they know where their stall is and things of that nature. So that becomes critical there. But the veteran drivers are going to have an upper hand here. I'd be rooting for Jimmy Johnson because he's a crossover. I like that. But my prediction on Jimmy Johnson is by lap 100, he's watching the race where I watched it with his wife one year. I sat up in the pagoda with Jimmy's wife watching the Brickyard 400, and Jeff Gordon's wife, and my wife. Okay, and Tony George. So dropping some names there, I know, but that's a fact of having a hot pass from the Viagra race car.
Yeah.
But anyway, I don't know that Jimmy will make it past lap 100.
Well, I hope you're wrong, Steve.
I hope I'm wrong too, for the fun of it. But the wear and tear on the drivers, they're pulling so many G's going through there, and the unknown. It's an unknown to guys like Jimmy Johnson and all the rest of the rookies what they go through. Rookies have won the Indy 500 before, but it's a rare occasion. Generally, it's because the car was set up so perfectly that the driver, could handle the car and stay out of trouble.
It's crazy. It's crazy we're sitting here talking about Jimmy Johnson being a rookie.
Yeah, I know. 7-time NASCAR Cup champion. He's a rookie at this. And he will look like a rookie real fast. Trust me when I tell you that.
Well,
he'll start in the top 12, and he'll be in the 20s quickly.
Well, his last oval, he finished in the top 5, didn't he?
Yeah, but again, I said Indy's a different cat. So
I get it.
Well,
and Steve, we have so we're going to do a show Friday after Carb Day to go over our picks and the top 5 best bets for the Indy 500 will be out by then, so we'll be able to talk about that a little bit. Is there anything else we need to be keeping an eye on this week other than
not really. I mean, some things from today. They did do a full practice today. Several drivers topped 100 laps in practicing today, which that's basically half the race. So a lot of drivers put a lot of miles on their car today, getting out. What are you laughing at?
Ryan Peters said Indy's a rectangle, Joe. I'm aware of that, Ryan. I'm aware that Indianapolis Motor Speedway is a rectangle and not an oval.
It's a rectangle with rounded corners.
Yeah, I think.
Thank you for that, Ryan. Thank you, Ryan. If you'd like to be on the show Friday, and we could send Joe to go out and get Slurpees for us in the village pantry, we can make that change. Today was a busy day at the track, though. They worked on pit stall assignments. I pulled up the speed chart. You pull up the speed chart. We have it. I wanted to see what the drop off was because today was the day they make their initial change of going from a qualifying setup on the car. Just trying to help. First grade was my best 3 years of my life. Yeah, I know. I'm right there with you, buddy. Don't worry about it. I wanted to see the speeds, and actually the speeds did not drop off that bad. Alex Palou topped the speed charts today at 229. Dixon at 229. Jimmy Johnson, third fastest car today at 228.
Yep.
Takuma Sato, guys, some of those guys are guys we picked to win the pole. Sato, Dixon, and Palou were all guys I recommended for pole winners, and I said that Takuma Sato and Scott Dixon would be the 2 you should bet money on the pole if you wanted to. Sato didn't make it. He made the top 12, but did not make into the fast 6. So, and then Dixon ended up on the pole, so we did good there. I think actually 4 or 5 of the drivers I recommended made it into the top 12. Marco Andretti, a guy starting at the rear. There's a guy who runs the race well, just doesn't have the horsepower to get out and qualify as fast as he wants to. Sage Karam, the veteran driver. Simon Pagenaud, a winner. Romain Grosjean was 11th at a time of 2:25. So you can see the drop off of the fast guys going from the 2:29s down to get down to 10th place, and you're at a 2:25 already. So there definitely is some speed differences there. But you see the guys with experience start moving to the top. Now, guys like Will Power qualified in the top 12, but only ran 20th today in practice.
So Ryan's got a question.
What's Ryan's question? On a serious note, do teams get a certain amount of allocated tires? Yes, I believe they do. I don't know what that number is. but I believe there is a tire allocation for Indy 500. And I will have that answer for you. I should know that.
Well, Steve,
'Cause I know,
are they using Goodyear tires?
no, they drive
Then
Firestone.
they shouldn't have a problem.
Firestone does build a very durable tire, and generally Indy has really never had any problems with tire issues at the Indy 500. Firestone's been with a partnership with them for as long as I can remember. I don't even know if Goodyear's ever even bothered. A lot of it, Goodyear doesn't want to invest into IndyCar because they've got their hearts and souls tied up in the NASCAR.
Which they're doing a shit job at, by the way.
Okay, but let's save that for Wednesday night for the NASCAR show. How about that?
Yeah, okay.
Here comes Elio, qualified 27th, ran 13th in track time today. Watch Elio coming up. So probably the guys that you're going to recommend are probably not the same guys I would recommend or that I would want to bet on or that I would hope I would pick in the square box pool or pool that I'm going to play in. But I bet we would have a couple drivers the same because I'm definitely going to pick Alex or Scott Dixon. I'm sure you're going to recommend Scott Dixon. I wouldn't touch Jimmy Johnson with a 10-foot pole, but that's okay. Connor Daly is another guy who stepped way up, qualified low, ran 7th today in practice. You can see the guys that have the experience now that are getting their cars race ready as opposed to qualifying ready because they know they've got to change the arrows on these to be able to run in turbulence and not clean air. And those are the guys that can handle these cars. That's why there was so much traffic on the track today. They're putting their turbulence setups into these cars so that the downforce in these cars will stay while the turbulence is biting you and trying to kick you around the track. Because these cars weigh about half of what a NASCAR weighs.
Right.
They're very lightweight compared to what a NASCAR weighs. And these cars will get buffeted around and move around with air. Plus, you're in an open cockpit. Even though it's got the screen around it, air is still coming down in there and twisting your head around 10 different directions. And the G-forces on those cars because the speeds they're handling in the turns makes it very, very difficult. So a lot of changes made to these cars today. They'll make sure that setup is where they want it on Friday, and then they'll park their cars, and then they'll have the parade on Saturday and the race on Sunday. Other things I picked up today, pistol alternates we talked about. Yeah, you will see some different teams and drivers on top, speed charts. We talked about that. Many of the drivers that missed on qual setups will dial it in for race setup. You're seeing that start to happen now just by looking at today's speed charts compared to what they did in qualifications. Some of these guys are posting faster speeds than they did in any one of their 4-lap qualifying speeds. They're getting faster speeds out of their car now in the race setup, mostly because they probably have a better understanding of how to handle the car in a race setup as opposed to a qualifying setup. You'll hear drivers lifting if they do the in-car camera. You listen, you won't hear cars running flat out as much, which brings into mind, which is what happened to Dalton Kellett today, who was the first driver so far this year to attack the wall, coming into turn 1. He was trying to do an outside pass on Romain Grosjean, and Grosjean he thought would back off and let him by. He did not. And so Grosjean held his line on the inside groove, gave Kellett nowhere to go but up into the marbles because he was on a passing mode. So he was basically flying going into turn 1 and had not, in a practice situation, backed his car in and slide in behind him and catch him in the short chute or coming out of turn 2. He didn't do that. You could hear him lift off the throttle when you listen to the in-car of that. And the minute that happened, what happened was all the weight and force of the car shifted to the front. Basically, made the back tires very light. Car spun around quickly. This is what happened. This is why you can't just pull your foot off the throttle going 230 miles an hour in a race car like that. There's not enough rear end weight because, like, even in my pickup truck, I have a 35-gallon tank in the back end of my pickup truck. No matter what I do, that keeps a lot of weight in the back of that truck.
You got to gas the turn, Steve.
A what?
I said you
You
got
got
to
a what?
gas the turn.
Gas to turn?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, at Indy, when you're going
reference
230
weight
miles
running.
an hour, it happens so fast. You're in the wall before you even think of putting your foot back on the throttle. You don't know what hit you until after it's hit you. So anyway, and he tagged his AJ Foyt machine pretty badly, but it's repairable. It's completely repairable, and I think you'll see by Friday for Carb Day, it will come out, and this car will be back in one piece. They'll have spent a lot of time dialing it back in and getting their weight distributed right in the car how he wants it, and getting the car set back up for race mode. So, but they'll get it done. They have plenty of time. More dangerous if this had happened on Friday. You only have Saturday to work on your car before you got to present it to the starting grid on Sunday. Ganassi, again, looks like any you can pick right now. Most any of the Ganassi drivers. And, you got the top three are Ganassi drivers. Marcus Ericsson, I believe, is a Ganassi driver. So you have, four of the top five were all Ganassi drivers. So Ganassi's got his cars dialed in right now. And, but again, there's a lot of luck involved in this race, a lot of making sure mechanically these cars hold together, which is the big part. Engines shouldn't be a problem as much as just they put so much stress in the suspension of these cars, and you're so at the mercy of what the driver next to you or in front of you is going to do, or behind you for that matter. Bad things can happen to very good drivers and very good people. So, any other questions you have for me?
I do not. I'm
It was a
kind of
good qualifying session, a lot of fun. I watched it all.
I'm kind of looking forward to what Friday brings. I know we're going to do another show, either Friday or Saturday. What day you want to do that?
Whatever works for you. I think Friday is when we make our picks, or you make the official recommendations for betting.net. But I'm going to tell betting.net if I bet on this, I'm probably going to go my own direction, just on this one.
Well, Steve, I do.
I don't mean anything.
I do pretty well with the NASCAR picks, but
That's only because in our show you always name your picks after I name mine.
Bullshit.
And you
Steve.
pick the same drivers I do, except you take Kevin Harvick and I take Kyle Busch.
That's ridiculous.
The only difference. We pick usually the same four drivers, and I believe
you do incredibly well.
I believe that Kyle Busch finished in the top five. Well, Harvick was languishing back in. I don't know. He was eating ice cream. Yeah. See, even Ryan Peters agrees with us.
Yeah. No, Ryan Peters agrees with me. Not you, Steve. And
he does not.
But anyway, I'm looking forward to it. We'll do that Friday night to bring you our picks for the Indianapolis 500 and talk a little bit about what we think is going to happen during the race. We did that a little bit tonight. Steve, do you got any last words before we wrap it up?
No, not at all. Go. Just have a good, safe Indy 500, and everybody have fun this week and look forward to a great race. It is the greatest spectacle in auto racing, and there's no funner race to watch. It's the only race really, other than a spattering of NASCAR races, that I've ever really been to and enjoyed being there. Where it's just a neat atmosphere and just a cool thing. Even though you can't see all the way around the track, it is a great event.
Yeah, and I thank you for your wonderful insight again today, Steve. It was good learning what you know about the Indy 500 and the time that you put in to do this research. So I do appreciate that. Great show. When we come to you Friday with our top 5 picks, if you would like to bet on the race, head on over to betting.net. It is your best bet for finding online casinos or sportsbook that's right for you. It will also compare the sites and let you know what sites is best for you to head on over and check out within your state. Again, I'm Joe Spilman with Steve Risley. This has been the Indy Indy 500 qualifying preview, and we will see you Friday. Don't forget to check out the NASCAR show on Wednesday at 7 p.m. with myself, Ryan Peters, and Steve. And also, Steve, are you and Mike doing another NBA show this week?
I like Steve a lot more than Joe for sure. Thank you, Tristan. See, another one of your fans is converting over to my fan. Don't flip off your people. That's not cool.
I just did, Steve.
Oh,
that happened. That happened.
I hope that we're doing another NBA show because I have actually invested into watching the NBA, and it is good basketball right now. I'm telling you what.
Well, I'll tell you what.
Got nothing to do tonight. I don't know if there's a game on tonight or not. If there is, I'll find it. But the NBA, this is what's fun with these guys. They go after it right now. Yeah, I'm with you, Tristan. Just keep laughing at Joe. I know. We all do. Don't worry.
Well, and I'll tell you what, Steve, that I hope you guys do a show. And if you do want to catch that show whenever it may come out here in the next couple of days, like and subscribe to the Facebook page or the YouTube channel. Also, check us out on TikTok. We got some things happening over there. And you can listen to all the shows on anywhere you could find major podcasts, whether that be Spreaker, iHeartRadio, Google Podcasts, which is my preferred site. Thanks for tuning in, and we will catch you Wednesday for the NASCAR show. Steve, have a good night.